Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we delve into this extraordinary elixir between Welsh and Maori indigenous medicine techniques. Before we dive into that extraordinary domain and introduce our speaker, I want to make a couple of comments about unfolding events here in Washington, D.C., related to the hearing on Wednesday, 2 days ago, by the House Government Oversight Committee through the subcommittees on crypto security and national security on the unidentified anomalous phenomena with various speakers from the military and civilian sectors. The part of the program that has been the most extensively sent out on social media came from Lou Elizondo and his statements that there was no doubt that this is all real, and under questioning from the chairwoman Mace, basically saying that yes, the U.S. government has retrieved craft, the U.S. government has retrieved biologics, alien bodies, and that this is something that one can take now as a given. So once again, we're being told by very senior members of the United States military and intelligence communities that we are not alone, that extraterrestrial intelligences and technology exist. The U.S. government is in possession of a vast amount of information, as well as our other governments, particularly Russia, China, Brazil, and probably multiple other governments. There's probably not a government anywhere in the world that doesn't have some kind of information that they're not sharing with their public. And so this is the reality in which we find ourselves. At the same time, in the United States, we had an election. And that election brought into the ascendancy and in about 2 months' time into the White House, Donald Trump. And this is important to note because Donald Trump, as you have probably noted from those he seeks to nominate for strategic positions in his administration, in the Defense Department, State Department, CIA, various other cabinet posts, the Director of National Intelligence, etc., are all Trump loyalists. They're people whose backgrounds may not necessarily qualify them for the job that they are being tasked with, but they are qualified to be a very tightly knit Praetorian guard, in effect, around Trump as he seeks very explicitly now to deconstruct the administrative state. And what that means for the UAP disclosure movement is that the center of gravity is shifting from the Congress, where it's been for the last 5 years, to the White House. Repeatedly during the campaign, Donald Trump stated fairly unambiguously that while he didn't know very much about it, he was all for disclosure. And he's for disclosure of the files related to the John F. Kennedy assassination. And he's for disclosure of all information related to the UFO phenomenon. Interestingly, he's tasked Robert Kennedy Jr. To head up the disclosure for the JFK matter. And Kennedy is on record during his campaign as supporting full disclosure of the UFO matter. So we may be in store for the first disclosure president. If that happens, the consequences of that are hard to speculate on. But we are now, as people like myself who live and work in Washington, D.C., watching the center of gravity shift over to the White House, we're in deep contemplation amongst ourselves as to how do we calibrate for this? How do you begin to establish relationships in the Trump White House, like we've established with Republicans in the Congress and in the Senate? And so it's a very exciting moment to be in Washington. There are going to be hearings starting immediately after the 1st of December for these cabinet posts, given the controversy that is already unfolding, and the consternation and the infighting and the intrigue. I plan to go to a number of the hearings just to witness the theatrics of what will take place. And I'll keep everybody posted as events unfold and strategic framing unfolds. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here on Humanity Rising. It's a great time to be alive. It's things are popping all over in a very dynamic way in many quadrants of the human reality. I want to now invite Corryn Pryce-Baxter to join us. She is someone who's part of the regenerative health program of Stephanie Mines and Spring Chen and others with whom we have an academic partnership. She's a traditional healer in both modalities of Wales and the Maori. And when I met her not long ago, I was so entranced by this elixir that she's been creating in these different forms of healing that I invited her to join us here on Humanity Rising, just to tell us about what she does and a little bit more about her background. So Corryn, if you'd like to turn on your video and join. I will just note that Corryn is in New Zealand, so it's the middle of the night. So we doubly thank you, Corryn, for joining us. And Corryn's going to join the after chat. And because it's so late there, we'll keep our dialogue between her and I a little shorter, so we don't impinge on her sleep overly much. But Corryn, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background? You know, you started out in Wales, you ended up in New Zealand, you became associated with the Maori, and you integrated Welsh traditional practices. You have a very dimensionalized mind, and would just love to hear your story and how you got into traditional healing and a little bit more about what you're up to.
Kia ora, Jim. Thank you so much for having me here. Before I start this meeting, this hui, I'm going to do some traditional practices to secure and protect this space. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to start with a karakia. It's a prayer. It's a karakia tawhito. It's an ancient prayer to keep us safe. It's one that I use in my healing practices. So I welcome you just to close your eyes and just link in with where I'm going. E te atua kaharawa, toro mai turinga araha ki runga tēnei tau tātou. Kia pai tōna haere tā ie ko ngā whakatori ko koe te kaha me te kororia. Kia ake. Āmene. Tēnā koutou, e te atua, tēnā koe. Kia ranganui rawa, ko papa tuanuku tēnā korua. I ngā mate, haere, haere, haere atura. Kia tātou te hunga ora. Nā me I kia koe, Jim. Tēnā koe ki te rangatira o tēnei hui, nai nei. E ngā manuhiri, nau mai, hara mai ki tēnei hui. Ko Corryn toku ingoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I will turn now to English and explain to you what I have just done. The karakia, tawhito, the ancient karakia, protects us within the cloak of the Great Spirit to make sure that we are safe as we talk, as we kōrero, have this conversation. And then I gave my greetings to the Great Spirit. I gave greetings to Sky Father and our Earth Mother that sustain us. We are the children that live in between the two worlds. And when we can utilize and acknowledge those aspects of ourselves, then we can align and do the work or the mahi that we are here to do. I also acknowledged our ancestors, to acknowledge where they are, that they have passed on, and that we are in the land of the living. So bringing it back to the light. I greeted Jim for being the leader, the orchestrator of this meeting. And I also greeted all the manuhiri, all the visitors, all the people that are watching today, to welcome you within this space. My name is Corryn, and it's a privilege to be here to kōrero and talk with you about my experiences within Welsh and Māori traditional medicine that has been a part and parcel of my life since I can remember. I was fortunate enough that being born into a family in Wales that did not discourage seeing spirit. It was part and parcel of everyday life. So my grandmother especially started to notice those gifts that I was showing, and at the age of 4 decided to take me under her wing and start to enable me to listen, the ability to listen extensively to the world around me, being taught about herbs, being taught the Maori or the life force of trees and our connection to our environment. So making ritual of considering and acknowledging the water that runs through us, what that can do for us, and the magic that we are here on this earth to do. So from a very early age, I was nurtured into that. And it's a lifelong process. I'm still learning to listen extensively. And growing up in that area, I was really nurtured and protected by a lot of the environment that was around me. I grew up in the country, on my ancestral land, and born next to my ancestral river and my mountain, which I spoke to and linked in with daily, as was part and parcel of just the construction of culture, of life. Growing up on the borders of Wales and England, there was some controversy, and I had to learn very early on what it was to be Welsh and to hold on to that. I don't know if many of you know of the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, that has been going for a long time, and in the 80s was a particularly rough patch with trying to establish nationalism. And growing up on the border, seeing bomb threats, seeing the hard lines between what identity is within culture was really evident. And I was prejudiced against myself for being Welsh whenever we went into England. And I was sent to school in England at the age of 8. Hence, my accent is a little bit weird. It kind of goes between really strong Welsh, can be quite English. I had to drop my accent really quickly, even though I was 10 minutes over into the border. Yeah, it was a challenge. Welsh was my language that I was learning in Wales up until that point, and everything kind of had to go. Although my grandparents did speak Welsh, they were fluent Welsh speakers. Much like what has happened in a lot of the world with colonisation, the language was literally beaten out of my grandparents growing up, so they only spoke it at home. So the resurgence with Welsh language was coming back in the 80s when I was born, which now is compulsory to learn in any Welsh school. You can learn your Welsh culture and your Welsh language. And the reason I'm bringing this up is language is the crucial point of connection between the vibration in how we speak and to the vibration of the land. So the ancient prayers, the way in which we address the environment, responds to the vibration within our voice. And it's the same within Māori, in Te Reo Māori, in New Zealand. The language connects us to the land. And if we lose the language, then we lose our connection to those things around us. So I'm a big promoter of indigenous languages, of all sorts. I speak a little bit of Welsh. I'm not fluent. I need to go back to Wales for a short time to relearn that. But I've been learning Te Reo Māori while I've been in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I came here when I was 20 years old. So I've been here 23 years now. And coming here was really a call by spirit, by wairua. The call to come here was so strong that I had to lead that and had to trust. And a lot of extensive listening to our environment, to what is within us, is trusting in that and learning to know what is your own mind and what is, we are being guided by our ancestors and the invisible world, which for me is as real as the visible. It's just acknowledging those things within us. So coming here, when I was 20, I was called to be right in the bottom of the South Island. There are 2 islands within Aotearoa. And being in the South Island and really being nurtured by the whenua, by the land, and by the people that I met down there, was a natural transition to what I had been brought up in Wales. A lot of the understanding and whakaaro, the mindset between Welsh and Te Ao Māori, the world of Māori understanding, is very similar in terms of how we connect to land, how we listen to spirit, how we can utilize the physical plants around us, as well as developing and learning a technique called hono hono, or in Welsh, the old priests and priestesses were called gwrthonaidd, the ability to transmute energy down through our bodies, allowing us to be open vessels to wairua, to the spiritual essence of who we are, to bring peace and comfort, always to do no harm. There is enough of that in the world, as we have seen. So being able to bring that peace down, we have to learn to find the peace within ourselves and open ourselves up as an open vessel. And the more that we can do that, the more that we can be a better conduit to be of service. So my journey here in Aotearoa, specifically with traditional Maori Rongoa or medicine, when I was 24, 25, I met my then-to-be mother-in-law. I did not know that particularly at the time, but her and I connected very strongly at an incredible site here in Taranaki in the west coast of New Zealand, called Pariaka. And Pariaka was a place which I have to mention because of the sacredness of this site within Taranaki. It was one of the first areas of peaceful protest against the colonizers that were coming into New Zealand in the 19th century. And they refused to fight. And the soldiers were actually met with children singing, with bringing gifts to the gates of the village. However, the village was rampaged, and a lot of the Māori people in that pa who were peaceful protesters against the confiscation of land were taken away and put into prisons and slave labor. And the women were held at the village to hold the energy there, with atrocious acts being made against them. So that site within Taranaki specifically has been upheld as a place of significant change and movement within Te Ao Māori and Tino Rangatiratanga, which is the sovereignty of what Māori people are still fighting for today. So I met my then mother-in-law on that site, and we were healing. We were giving out the healing to those people that were needing the time during a festival that was there. And 6 months later, I was living with this kuia, this kaumata, which is what we call elders in Aotearoa within Māori. And I remember a small, quite funny story. I was there at her house, at her whare, and I was doing a hikoi monoi a with her, which is like a meditation. And within that meditation, I heard a voice, and it said, "You will be moving here, and you will be marrying one of her sons, and she will become your mother-in-law, and your life will take a very different road." Albeit, Kuia Olive was in her late 70s, early 80s, and me being mid-20s, I was like, how old are her sons? And what is this going to look like? Was the first thought that came through to my mind. But nevertheless, that connection did happen. And we had a beautiful daughter, Raihina, which is a very old tupuna ancestral name that's given to my daughter. And so for every day for 6 years, I was not allowed to write anything down, which is accustomed to traditional oral practices of learning Rongoa Māori, understanding, and again, learning to listen extensively to the land within Aotearoa, learning to listen to what the plants had to tell me, what the different wairua, the different spirits here had to teach me, and working with her every day for 6 days, working alongside my kuia, my mother-in-law, to teach and share internationally as well as within New Zealand. And we had thousands of students come through our marae, house of learning, marae wānanga. It's a place of deep understanding and learning. And so since she passed in 2013, I've continued to work alongside her within Wairua and other of my loved ones and ancestors that are passed over. And I run a traditional clinic which incorporates, which is very similar, Welsh and Māori mindset, being able to utilize and connect with the land, either through going deep into the earth and connecting with the energy forces and lines that connect all of us on this planet, and being able to go up, connecting with my own DNA and that which has been passed down to me. So I have been doing that since that time, and work every day with people of all sorts. I've worked in hospitals alongside some doctors with amputations and surgeries where allopathic medicine has not quite been enough. It's a very symptomatic approach to hauora or to health. So utilizing plants and more new medicines can really work very well together. And being open to that. So, everything is here for a reason. And I love my mahi. I love what I'm here to do. Yeah, I think that's enough for now, Jim. I'm very open to any other questions that people may have. I may have missed some things out.
No, that was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. It must have been a powerful imprint starting off Welsh, given the tensions with the English in Great Britain, and at a very young age having to change your accent and be English when it was appropriate to be English, but also feeling deeply Welsh, and then going to New Zealand, where the same applies to the Maori.
Yeah.
So that you, in some ways, because you identified with the Maori, you became a minority in both situations in a certain way. And yet you're Welsh and non-Maori. And I would just love to hear a little bit more about how you held that tension in your psyche and how it's affected your worldview and your sense of kind of cultural harmony and also cultural diversity.
Yeah. I think for myself, having such a standing to nature, what was beyond me, I did go through many years of distrust of humanity sometimes, not quite comprehending why cultural cloaks could not be celebrated. The confusion that came when I was younger of, don't speak Welsh here, or, Kāti ki te ro Māori, don't speak Māori here. It more confused who or what people were, more than made me sway my identity. I was firm in who I was. And having to mask, I suppose, that in the outer world to my inner world was probably the most challenging, of how to understand where people were coming from within my own worldview, to not discriminate, but to be curious, to ask questions of what made you feel that way towards Welsh people? What is it that scares you? What are the injustices that you are feeling that makes it fearful to love humans? So for me, being secure, nature was a rescue point for me. No communication verbally had to happen in nature. It invariably penetrates us through an osmosis, if you like. Where an understanding happens without having to articulate or be in the deep semantics of argument, of conflict. Nature accepts you completely as you are, and nature can see through the prejudice. It has a way to skirt around the corners and get to the heart of who you are. So nature was probably my survival retreat, my shelter. Spent a lot of time in nature, and that really allowed me to identify myself and to get the courage when I went out into the world more, to say, no, this is me, and if you don't like that I am this particular culture, it says more about you than about me. But let's try and move forward. Yeah.
And would you say there's how would you characterize the difference between sort of the Welsh English and the Maori kind of New Zealand dynamics? Are they
Yeah.
basically the same? Oppressed people are the same everywhere, or were there differences that you noted?
I think the mentality of the British Empire is it's a cut and paste, divide and conquer. And that's certainly what happened in Wales, just a few more hundred years before it happened in the rest of the world. Our tribes were split, and then children taken, raised as English, and then put back in two cultures to divide. And very similar to I suppose Australia, they did the same thing, the stolen generation, to try and cultivate.
Same in the US with the native tribes.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
It's a
And it's
a
still
cut and
going
paste
on.
model. Yes, it is.
It's still going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is a cut and paste divisive method to cut us from who we are. Within Aotearoa, New Zealand, it's a unique country because it was founded on a biculturalism. The treaty, or Te Tiriti o Te Waitangi, that was signed by many chiefs, rangatira, in 1860, and the English, who were in a minority. There was 50 to 1, 50 Māori to 1 colonizer at the time of the signing of the treaty. And that the treaty was translated into Māori and English. And the man Hobson, who translated the treaty into Māori, was a completely different version to the English. So a treaty was signed based on different premises completely. So they
And
had a
nobody
treaty,
checked.
which is
Nobody checked.
well checked.
Yeah.
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 It wasn't convenient to have them checked. And even this weekend in Aotearoa, people are marching. Māori are marching to support and nurture the treaty, which the government are trying to actually overrule at the moment. So it was built on a different concept in Aotearoa. The tensions that have been created from that treaty, or the misuse of that treaty, where illegal confiscation and imprisonment of Māori people was betrayed, and we're still facing that. So here, the identification with being Māori is very strong, and there's a strong voice, and a lot of people still speak Te Rā Māori, and there has been a resurgence of that language, which connects people with who they are. You can't defy the whakapapa, the genealogy, the family history of what is coming through, and the oral stories of very recent times, really, within the last 150 years. It's very prevalent. Colonisation has had its attack. A lot of industrialization and alcoholism and abuse that has come in. But people are here, Māori people are starting to stand up and say, komutu, enough. We need to find a different pathway here. So it's a little bit different to Wales. We have our own referendum there politically. The north and the south is slightly divided. In the north, sorry, there's a really strong nationalism of Welsh language, and trying to really preserve the culture, but it's done in a slightly different dynamic. There's a lot more people in Wales than is to here. There's only 5 million in Aotearoa. So the voices can seem to seep up through on the physical plane a lot clearer in my experience. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No
Now,
worries.
another thing I wanted to take up before we dive into the healing modalities is your comment on the relationship between land and language. That's
Yeah.
a very profound area of exploration, that if you live on one side of the mountain, you have a certain dialect, and if you live on the other side of the mountain, you'll just naturally have another dialect because land affects language.
Yeah.
And language shapes thoughts and actions and beliefs and worldviews. So talk to us as someone who knows native Welsh, you know Maori, you know English, you know all these languages. Talk a little bit more about the relationship between land and language.
So if we go back to the origins of language, I'll speak specifically to what I have been taught within Te Reo Māori, which is again similar to Cymraeg, to Welsh. The first language before humans was the manu, the bird. And the language comes, the whakapapa, the genealogy of language comes from birds. And so when we can speak like the bird, which is the origin of Te Reo Māori specifically, if you notice the way in which birds interact with the land, they call you when the sun is rising. They're responding to their environment. They know when a ruamoko or an earthquake is coming. They lift themselves up and take them away. So if we look at the genealogy of language of Te Reo Māori, specifically in the worldview, when we are the children of the language of birds, we start to speak as the land speaks. So the vibration between our vocal cords and the vibration in which the land hums, the energy in which we can feel and sense on the land, responds to the incantation of our vocal voice. That is why we're given the gift of voice. We were not meant to be silent. When we're doing our karakia, we are the physical conduit to bring in that energy. Unless we speak that, we're not going to be able to bring it into the physical world. And so when we bring our voices through, which is a taonga, which is a gift, the physical world vibrates to that frequency. And when we can do that, as in sand healing, or when an ancient prayer is done in a certain tone or a chant, the physical world, the physical body responds to that particular sound frequency of our voice. Does that answer your question?
That's brilliant. That's beautiful. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So the hum of the earth, the frequency of the earth affects the language. And I would imagine that for a healer to be able to align one's vocalization with the earth energies sort of underneath our feet would be an important skill to learn in the healing arts. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yep. Yep, spot on. Yeah. Again, it's learning to listen to what the land is saying, how it is vibrating. And within the healing arts, we can have a way to utilize that energy that's in the area. And the wairua, the guardians, the kaitiaki, what we call them in Te Reo Māori, the guardians of that specific piece of land, we can incant and invite into the space of healing to be able to benefit whatever situation is going on in there, or the people that are needing the help. Within one of the things that I was always taught is, if you can, pick your medicine, pick your rongoa from the closest vicinity to where you live. Because when we do that, the energy aligns to us, and it's actually more benefit to us. The herbs accommodate what you need. So there might be slightly different constitutions of properties, because the energy frequency of how we stand on the place that we live, and the vegetables that we eat, and the rongoa, the herbs that we need to pick to sustain our physical and sometimes spiritual well-being, align to us. So we're never in disconnect. And I think a lot of people, of what we're seeing, a lot of disease, is that people are disconnected to the vibration of where they live. And learning again to listen and feel that energy connection enables a general well-being of who you are. So absolutely, within the healing system, utilizing what land, what whenua, who has walked there before, what guardians are there, is all part and parcel and very necessary to orchestrating healing at any particular time.
Brilliant, brilliant. You know, I'd say I hadn't really thought before about birds being the language before humans, but you're right. You know, I can't think of another animal. Most animals stay quiet, you know, and they're slinking around trying not to be either eaten or they're trying to eat, and they don't make much sounds except on occasion. But you're right, the birds, they're just chirping away. They greet the dawn and then they go quiet at nights. And there's some birds right outside my flat that are just singing away almost every morning when I leave for the office. And now, is that a Maori understanding? Is that a Welsh understanding? That's because that's pretty insightful.
Yeah, so that is specifically Te Ao Māori, but this in Wales, the birds came to fruition after the Great Sand, which was the cauldron. So they were the first as well. But the direct link to Manu and to birds, sorry, and the language that was given to me through an oral history within Aotearoa, with a connection of land. But it is very similar to Wales as well. After the Great Sand. Yeah.
Let's turn to the Welsh and the Maori healing traditions, because I know that's your actually your area of expertise and practice and so forth. Why don't you just give us a sort of a compare and contrast and similarities and differences between sort of the indigenous Welsh healing arts and the Maori healing arts, because they're literally on opposite sides of the planet.
Yeah.
They'll have some similarities, but also some differences. So how would you calibrate for those?
Within the Welsh tradition, our ancient priests and priestesses, the Gwythonide, they were taught from a very early age. Basically, if the world was going to end, one person would be able to work with nature to sustain it. So being able to listen to the environment, to be able to transmute what needed to be done, being able to sing back into life what was being lost, and to be able to rebuild society as it was. So the skill set that our ancient druids and priests and priestesses were able to utilize was really working in harmony with the world in which we came to bring healing into the physical world. It's hard to differentiate a little bit, Jim, because they are so similar in that oral traditions were paramount. There was no written language within Wales, as to within Te Ao Māori. Everything was drawn or transmuted through oral understanding. Hence why a lot has been lost and still trying to relearn and regain a lot of the ancient practices. But utilizing the
Welsh never developed a written language?
They did develop it, but traditionally there was no written language. It only came into started to be written down through the red and white books written by the monks in the 5th and 6th century. Was the first time it was really written. So it was a phonetic language and 4-tonal. So it really depended on the expression of what you wanted to do and say. So it was never written until a bit later on. Well, gotcha. 5th or 6th century is still quite late, I guess, in terms of humanity. But everything was done through pictures, through diagrams, right. Or through transmutation of knowledge and understanding. Much like Te Ao Māori, here, everything was carved, everything was the stories were written into the carvings. You may see some people with tamoko, with facial tattoos, or on their body. It tells a story of who you are. So you can interpret what that is into understanding where each other come from and who they might be standing in the community. So again, the language was not written down until much later. I've forgotten your question.
Well, no, just a compare and contrast between the
Yeah.
Welsh and the Maori healing traditions.
Yeah. So that's sort of what it was in Wales. There's a word that we use which is called aweneth, and aweneth is a practice to be able to go deep. So the word shaman was never indigenous to Wales. It sort of came from different areas of the world, but the best way to describe aweneth is a little bit like a shaman, where you're able to go in deeply to a place to access the body, access the mind and the spirit, to bring health and healing to that person. So within my practice, I do that with people. I go into aweneth, to those places of the shadow to find the gold, what I say. And within Māori, hono is the same thing. It's a connection. It's a relationship to the very depths of us, where we can access the mind, the physical mind, the spiritual mind, the physical, and those that have passed as well. So that they're very, very similar in being able to reach those points. But I have found that within most indigenous cultures, if we're looking at, 3,000-4,000 years, that the understanding of a physical person is very similar into how we can access trance-like states, how we can access those deeper parts of people through incantation, through the healing of hands, and inviting the invisible world to the physical, so that the whole person can be looked at as a whole person rather than segregated, which tends to happen within more Western psychology and medicinal practices. So there's very strong similarities there.
Yeah, I think that would probably be true of almost all indigenous peoples.
Yeah.
And I think the reason would be that the indigenous are the ones who haven't separated themselves from the land.
Tika, that's the one. That's right.
Yeah.
That is right.
Yeah. And if you stay close to the earth is going to talk the same basically to all of her children. And it's only when we disengage and distance that we get caught up in our mind games and greeds and machinations of power.
Yeah, I agree completely. The understanding that we are the middle layer, we are the conduit of spirit. We can work with spirit to bring that into the physical world, and ultimately to start to raise the consciousness of many, many peoples. The segregation of what has happened, with the transition of world events, is all part and parcel of our learning. And now I feel that more and more of us are coming into the forefront to say, just listen a little bit more. Because once you can listen, you can kind of go on your way and and blossom in your own learning and be humbled in it too.
Yeah. Well, let's turn to your own practice and the way you, Corryn, have amalgamated these different traditions out of which you've come, and the way you practice the healing arts. Would love to just hear what principles guide you and when you meet a patient. So I'm coming into your office, doctor, I just want to talk to you. What's your modality? How do you approach patients in need? What principles guide you?
Open heart, open mind. But when people come in and see me, I usually have a preempt within my own spiritual understanding of who's going to be coming in that day. And so my vibration is already starting to work with them, up to a week before they come in, even though I don't know who they are. In the physical, they get hold of me and say, I need to come and see you. And so my trust in that, our vibration is already starting to work. So I do my spiritual practices every day, which align me to whatever vibration is being drawn toward me that I might be able to help. So when people come to me, in the physical, I'm really not quite sure what's going to be presented, but there is a part of me that already has started to work with them on a spiritual essence. So when they come there, the ability for them to open up and say, this is going on for me. And it could be anything. I have people who come to me because they've tried every other avenue of medicine in all, allopathic. They've been to hospital, they've had surgeries, nothing is working. Or there's, people. I had one patient, a young girl who had just been to university and she had insomnia, and she had tried everything. She'd taken all the sleeping tablets, all the melatonin, you name it. And she came to me and said, somebody just mentioned that I should come and see you. And when she came in, she hadn't slept for about 3 months. She was a nervous wreck. And so I sat down, and what I usually do is like, what brings you here? Why are you coming to me? What can I do? And so having those questions just kind of opens up a flurry of, actually, this is what's going on. So kōrero, we call it te whiti whiti kōrero. It's an understanding. So we have a deep conversation about what's going on in your life, what's on top, what's going on underneath. And this one girl, I remember she came in, had insomnia, and I was being advised from my wairua that something had happened, that something was just underneath the surface of why she couldn't sleep. And I put her onto I lay her down and started to work with her energy. And I was advised that there was a time she just started university, just started college, and she had got drunk one night, and she had come back to her halls of residence, and she woke up, and from that time she wasn't able to sleep again. And I was told from my spiritual understanding that a spirit that had passed away had actually latched onto her in that state of vulnerability. When we don't protect ourselves, when we're going into altered states, things can latch in. So we have to be careful. And this entity had attached to her that had died. And I did an old karakia to work with that spirit. So called them in to lift it. And she went, and she slept ever since. So it's understanding where Western medicine can work and where there are different dimensions to what needs to be done. So I work with all capacities within my clinic. So exorcisms, I guess you could call it, quite literally, to very physical needs as well. Broken bones, arthritis, heart conditions, TBI, brain injuries, women who are hapu, who are pregnant. I work with them all the way through their transition to motherhood. So yeah, my clinic has a variety of people that come in, but the
Now, are you an MD?
Pardon?
Are you an MD? Are you a medical doctor, trained?
No.
So what do you do with a broken arm, for example?
If a broken arm has not healed properly, then I make up a topical application of rongoa, and the particular herbs help to create mitosis. So it actually starts to heal broken bones or torn ligaments. If that's what people are choosing to want to work with, then there are things that can help them. Obviously, advise always to go to the doctor because you have to be careful. Traditional practices can be slammed and characterized as unsafe. So I never disclose what I can do may be that miracle. Always go and find out what they need to do first. Go to the doctors, get an x-ray, see what's going on. And then if that's still not working for them, then we can put something on it and see what we can do at my clinic. Basically.
Right. When everything else fails, come see me.
Yeah, come and see me. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
You know, Corryn, I am so fascinated by your story because, let's take Jesus. And everybody knows about Jesus, right? In the Gospels. He understood what you understand, that illness is an entity. And that if you can cast out the entity, the person will heal. There's a dozen stories about him doing that in different stages of his ministry and career. One thinks of Carlos Castaneda and the Yaqui Indians of northern Mexico and Don Juan. Same thing. That what ails a person is often an entity, kind of an alien intelligence that in a moment of weakness or a lassitude latches on, almost like a cancer, but it's kind of a cancer of the spirit, shall we say. And it's the capacity to eliminate that's actually the key to the healing, not taking supplements or doing more exercise, and all the other things that one thinks of normally, and in Western medicine, take a big pharma pill. I'd love to have you say more about the presence of entities in our beings, because there's a lot of entities out there, in my view, that are latching on to an increasingly desperate and weakened population. There
are as many entities that are attached to different vibrations as what we allow our mind to perceive. The physical ailments that we are presented with in the physical world, the symptomatic presence is what I call it. The physical is the last point of the physical manifestation of an illness or disease. So if somebody is presented with a physical illness, as what you say, we work backwards within all aspects of the person to their DNA, to the intergenerational understandings, the way in which the nervous system was made up, of our environmental impacts, to the etheric, to our auric, to the much further spiritual dimensions that could also be past life, karmic, soul journey and learning. So when we're working with someone, we're constantly working backwards into the 9 dimensions of where that entity or learning or weakness has come in. And that's where we go to heal. The entities that can come around are as positive and negative as the belief system of what the patient is wanting to understand and conceive at the time.
Yeah, our belief structures and orientations become attractors.
Yes, we are physical beings. Yeah. So our belief systems, the most powerful energy in the universe is thought. So if you hear the guru and many other masters say, if you can control your mind, you can create your reality. And it's a simple truth, but the pathway to there feels quite complicated. That it is the truth. It is a truth. So if you can work back with the physical mind in conjunction with the 9 dimensions of the body and to the universe, then you can start to heal it at levels where people are able to comprehend. Sometimes you can bypass that. You can bypass the conscious mind and go to heal those places as a healer through your understanding of where the vibration is. And sometimes we're just not allowed to say it because we're not here to dump healing. We're here to support healing. So yeah, there are different dynamics to it. But the entities that come in are all based on our belief system and vibration of what we're choosing to believe to come near us.
Yeah. Now, Sarah Lane is making a comment that she wasn't quite sure about my question about entities, and she was saying that there's often a trauma that's imprinted in the tissues. And we need to be careful about that. And I think, Sarah, that's an absolutely important point. The entities are not the exclusive aspect of this, but I think they're an aspect that's been understood since ancient times, forgotten by modern science. But what Sarah, I think, is pointing out very importantly, like with Gabor Mate, and that's what Stephanie Mines talks about, how trauma gets embedded in the tissues.
Yes.
So talk to us about that whole dimension, because that's huge. That's a huge dimension.
Yeah. So that is the way in which environmental experiences, either that have come through the development of the embryo within our mothers and their experience when they were pregnant with us, the environmental impact or the imprint of our response to our environment can become embedded within our nervous system. So it starts to create different illnesses or mindsets or response to our outer climate. So in terms of trauma being imprinted into the tissue, absolutely, that is definitely a part of it. And we are not physical unless our nervous system grows in an environment of which we're born, in which we're calibrated to respond in different ways.
Yeah.
How trauma is imprinted into our tissues, into our nervous system, I find really interesting, because you get some people who, like Gabor Mate, some people will continue to abuse or continue to have the same responses, and some people born from the same parents in the similar circumstances will respond in a completely different way.
Totally.
And
I have
those
two sons,
parts,
and I can tell you, we watered them the same, and they went in opposite directions.
Yeah. So that is when you start to look beyond the trauma of the body.
Yeah.
There are different learnings. So it's about encompassing and not segregating one particular trauma from another. It's an inclusive thing.
Right, exactly.
In my practice, the whole person, and sometimes those that walk with them, come into the room. So we work as a collective, because you are more than just the physical.
Yeah, and I would imagine, I would love to have your opinion on this, of past lives and contracts that people have before they enter into the birth process. So it's about the tissue and the trauma to tissue. It's about entities who are out there in the invisible realms. It's about our psychologies and our upbringing, but there's also a cosmic dimension where we've been here before, and we're carrying a certain karmic proclivity as we enter into this particular incarnation. How do you and the Welsh and Maori traditions understand that whole notion of past lives and contracts with people? I know a number of people who were very clear that they were aware before entering into their mother's womb, as it were, why they were doing so.
Yeah.
And because they were clear about that, they could choose between this person and that person by whom to be born. So say more about that.
Yeah, there are more and more people becoming aware of that. The idea within what I was taught and here, reincarnation is a real thing, and you come back each time to learn a specific reason. Even to babies who choose to only progress through a certain term of pregnancy before going back to spirit. It is it is without not acknowledging the grief of what people go through, but it's understanding the choices and learnings of the soul pathway, of increasing the understanding of the soul's journey, that it's choosing to come in to have different experiences. Therefore, my understanding is that everything that we experience, we are supposed to go through. The speed in which we decide to go through that process can be altered by those people that we come into contact with. We can choose whether or not we want a very drawn out learning process of torment and illness. We can bypass those if we link into the soul understanding and work with that at that level. So if you're dealing with contracts with different people in a karmic situation, and you can become aware of it at the different dimensions, then yes, you can change it, because the power of the mind is the strongest energy in the universe, and working alongside your own soul to choose what it is that you want to do. So yeah, we work in that. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. This is what I love about Stephanie. Stephanie Mines is the multidimensionality with which she's approaching the healing complexio, because there's so many aspects to why a person goes into dis-ease and how a person then comes back into wholeness, that you have to understand everything from past lives to childhood trauma to entities, coming in, and many, many more factors that are either spoken and unspoken and visible and hidden, that reverberate through time and space. So I'd be interested, how did you meet Stephanie? And because you went through her program, and what was that learning? Here you were, a Maori Welsh practitioner, and then you meet Stephanie, and I know she spent a lot of time in New Zealand. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I met Stephanie. I had met her a few times before lockdown, actually. But lockdown was really when I started to delve with Stephanie online, and to do some work with her. What struck me with Stephanie was the origin of the TARA approach, to the Jin Shin with the pressure points. It is something that was in my culture and also within Te Ao Māori, understanding where you come to the body to release trauma in any capacity. So I met Stephanie in New Zealand. Actually, I think the first time I did meet her, I was doing some healing in an open community festival, and I had some tables up, and she came along, and a friend of mine introduced me to her and said, "Oh, this is Stephanie. I think she had a bad knee. Can she get on your table?" And she got on there, and I sort of did my thing. And I won't disclose anything, but that's the first time I met her. So after that, our wairua, our spiritual dimensions had connected. And then it was chance meetings. I had some issues pertaining to delivering a teaching that I was doing, and my back decided to give out. So somebody said, "I'll call Stephanie." So I called her, and we were doing this on the phone together for support. And then when she left just before the lockdown, was when we started to really connect, and I started to delve into what I felt was original medicine, which is similar to what I have been taught. It's original medicine going back to Creator, to access healing within the physical form, looking at all the multidisciplines of energy and layers. And I resonated with that. And that is something that I do daily now anyway, just to probably be more honed into the physical than I had done before.
Well, thank you for that. And Stephanie Mines, everyone, is just a healer. I think she's now living in Hawaii. She has a regenerative health program, the TARA approach, as she calls it. She's mastered Asian acupuncture technology and Western medicine and indigenous wisdom, and she's got a program in partnership with Ubiquity University for anyone who's interested in going through a world-class healing program. Corryn has been through her program, and it's out of that we had the opportunity to meet. So that's who Stephanie Mines is. Let me ask you just two last questions, Corryn, then we'll adjourn to the after chat. One is by Roberto Schifo. He's asking a very interesting question between the healer and the healed, and where does the healing happen? You know, we have all kinds, like Jesus, back to Jesus. You know, he was almost compulsive. I mean, he whether sort of they knew he was doing it or not, he just would heal people, and it was clearly coming from him. But also healing also comes from the patient, and there needs to be some kind of reciprocity. And so in your experience, where does the healing process take place? Is it the healer? Is it the healed? Is it the symbiosis? What happens?
Essentially, the healer can bring through a healing frequency that the patient has a choice to meet. The healing frequency is given. How much of that healing frequency the patient chooses to take on is completely up to them, and completely up to where they are capable to see it and where they prefer to surrender the timing, you know, the ailments that are presented, is all choice. So the frequency is given. If it wants to be received, you know, an inch or all the way through the body, all the way through the 9 dimensions of that person, that is up to them. What I have found with the masters such as Jesus, it was a very different time. And his ability to touch somebody in an instant, and to go through, if you like, right back to the Akashic records of time, he was able to do that very, very quickly, because he opened himself to be a conduit of healing. Nowadays, we're in a little bit of a different time. So I'll just quickly talk about the frequency of time that is changing. So the time of the guru, the time of the person who does the healing for you, is ending. We're coming into the time of healers within the household. How we can bring the knowledge that, you know, gurus would go to their cave for 25, 30 years and come out with the knowledge and heal somebody. Now we are being called to heal ourselves, which is a very, very different level of consciousness that is required on this earth plane at this point.
Good point.
So when I am healing or working with somebody, there are things that I'm said, well, you could do that, Corryn, you could go to that level with them, but it is not my responsibility to give them that healing. I can support them and access those points so they can find it for themselves. And that is the difference of what we are noticing. Probably why you're having a lot more people having healing crises in the middle of supermarkets and things like this. I can't cope with the world. It's like, this is all part of the process. The time of the guru has gone. Self-empowerment and self-choice in healing is becoming more paramount. So giving people the ability to say, you can do this for yourself if you like, and this is how to access it, and this is how I can support you. This part I can do, this part I'm not allowed, because this is your journey for healing in raising the consciousness of the earth at the moment.
Beautiful point. I think that's very profound notion that as time changes, as context changes, content changes, and we're now in a context where, you know, there's an imperative that each of us take accountability for our own health. I think that's the essence of what you're seeking to say. And it's not that to exclude the guru or the healer that we may be fortunate enough to meet, but the onus of responsibility now is on us.
Yes. Yeah. And a necessary part of human physical evolution. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one last question. And by the way, put your website in the chat
Oh,
and
excellent.
an email, because
Mhm.
I think you do virtual sessions, right? Or do people have to
Yes,
meet
I
you?
can do. I'm pretty old school, so just get hold of me on my email and
Yeah, put your email, because I
type it
think
in
there's a
here.
lot of people that would like to contact you
Sure.
and learn more about and maybe take a session or two.
Sure. I'll just put my email in and people can just get hold of me. That's it. So just yeah, get hold of me there.
Cozy Roses at
Cozy Roses.
yahoo.com.
That's my
Cozy
personal
Roses. I
one.
love it.
So
Cozy Roses.
you can have a personal email sitting with me.
So one last question, is in your healing sort of pathway, now that you've accumulated all this experience and wisdom and you're applying it in very, very important ways, what what is on the cutting edge for you? What aspects of the healing art, which is inexhaustible, what's alive for you right now as a particularly exciting thing that you're learning about healing or you're applying about healing, or did you just have an experience where you just really healed somebody and it completely changed your uh, what's the cutting edge for you right now?
Um, every session is a little bit cutting edge. There's always different dimensions to people. I guess one of the things that really took me into a profound understanding, much deeper than I'd had before, was working with somebody who has schizophrenia. And um, during that session, they were experiencing an episode. And when you look at Western medicine of schizophrenia, you look at the hormonal changes that suddenly occur within the brain release of hormone and neurotransmitters. What I experienced within spiritual realms, within the Wairua, was so blatant, so obvious, and so um, uncomprehendable to Western medicine
Mhm.
that really opened my mind and Wairua to understanding different mental health conditions that we are finding more and more in this world. It kind of led me down a pathway of research. It's only in the last couple of months led me in a pathway of research into indigenous and Western ideas of more severe mental health issues. My experience in that was so compounded in the energy of what I felt and what I saw in Wairua that I cannot deny working with entities on that level
Mhm.
of where the physical mind opens up in different dimensions to different spiritual entities and vibrations that has really triggered an excitement within me to be able to work with people on
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
level. Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
So this will bring us to a close for today, but people are wanting your website.
I don't have a website.
You don't have a
Not
website.
yet. Not yet, anyway. You can look for me on Tara Approach. I think you can see who I am a little bit there. Otherwise, type in my name and Rongoa on Google and you'll find some information there too.
Cool. So
Really,
it's
I'm very
very
traditional,
old
very
school,
old
very
school.
traditional. Good for you. Good for you. Good for you.
I have never had to advertise my mahi. It's all been by word of mouth in the community.
That's the best way.
Um,
That's the best way.
yeah,
That's the
but
way Jesus
yeah,
did
yeah,
it.
yeah.
He didn't
Well,
have a
look what
website.
happened to him, hey? Let's not go there. I will put my full name down here for you, so people can do that, and I'll put my email underneath it.
Yeah.
Again. in case people do it. I'm also on WhatsApp, but email is best, and then we can just exchange what needs to happen.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Corryn. You're a world treasure.
Oh, kia ora,
I love the
Tim.
way you've just brought the East and West together, the way you've identified with the indigenous wherever you've been in your life path, the way you've created your own personal elixir, and you feel very authentic and deeply wise to me. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for being who you are. And we'll be in touch down the road, probably for another session as Humanity Rising unfolds into the future. God knows with what's going on, we all need healing. And I think the point that you made, which was the most important in some ways, is that we all need to take accountability for it. You know, and that's the treacherous, insidious nature of Western medicine, is that the patient's not encouraged to take accountability because either the surgeon or the big pharma are just going to take care of it for you. And that's the opposite of the kind of personal empowerment we need in this very turbulent age of chaos.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, everyone, that'll draw our session for today to a close. You can join Corryn in the after chat. Stan is putting the link in the chat box. You received the link in your Zoom reminder for today. Corryn, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
I'd
getting
like
up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, it's okay.
Why don't you
I will
end us
just
with a blessing?
I will just close us.
Yeah.
Close this session with another karakia to bring us all into we can open the doors now. E te atua, kia tau tōrangi Māori ki runga i ngā iwi o te ao. Tuturu whakamua kia tīna, tīna. Haumi, hui, dai ki. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Corryn. Thank you, everyone.